Well, thanks, Roseanne. I'm going to continue the introductions process here. Our guest speaker is Monte Johnson, CEO of Cymbet Corporation, King Boreas Rex the 83rd, as you've heard this morning with the St. Paul Winter Carnival. So Monte's currently holding down 2 full-time jobs. I saw Monte coming out of the Walmart in Roseville about 7 months ago, and he had this big flatbed with 4 or 5 coolers. Monte, what do you, good to see you. What the heck is this? He said, well, I'm King Boreas Rex the 83rd of the St. Paul Winter Carnival. This is one of the things well, what are you up to? We're going to hear about this story. He really has been holding down 2 full-time jobs during this time period. So Monte joined Cymbet in 2010 as Vice President and CFO and moved into the CEO role in 2015. He has over 35 years of business experience with private equity-backed as well as publicly traded technology companies. Prior to Cymbet, he held senior positions at General Electric, Honeywell, Dascom Systems, and Ciprico. He began his career with the Tushaw CPA firm, where, among other things, he was responsible for hiring the guy who ultimately co-founded and later hired me at Cressa, our fellow FEI member Tom Sexton. So in a way, I guess I might not have enjoyed this awesome post-CFO Renaissance career at Cressa if it wasn't for Monte. So that's the brief bio, and we'll learn more about Cymbet, Monte, and his career arc later this morning. But before we get started, just want to say we have a special Winter Carnival surprise for the audience at the end of our time this morning, so stick around if you can. And for now, please join me in giving a warm FEI welcome to Monte Johnson.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay. This is my clicker here. All right, beautiful. Beautiful. Well, it's always a little concerning when somebody says we have this many years of experience, because we're all accountants and we think, God, that person's old. But that's what happens. It's not. It's even worse when you talk about being King Boreas the 83rd, and the kids go, you don't look 83, and that's good. I feel better about that. So, and I'm sorry about the cold weather, but that's my job, to bring in the ice and snow. And last night we were we made a meal and then served it at the McDonald's house, our little family. And I had the opportunity to sit down with some people from Sri Lanka. And they assured me they were not going outside for the next couple of days. And they weren't excited about meeting the King of Winter. That's okay. So, Cymbet Corporation. Cymbet's been around since 2000. It was incorporated and got going initially in 2001. So it's been around for a long time. It's really gone through about 3 different iterations. And the latest is when I took over as the CEO 4 years ago. And we make little tiny rechargeable batteries. And when I think of tiny, if you'll look at the inside of the plate that you have, or the saucer, the plate that the saucer's sitting on. Think of about a 6-inch wafer. And on that wafer, our largest battery we make 450. And our smallest battery we make 18,000 on that 6-inch wafer. So when I say small, oh, it's nanotechnology. Well, technically it's a little bit smaller than nanotechnology on the small batteries. And so what are they used for? They're very, very low power. What are they used for? No, they don't power hearing aids. They don't power pacemakers or anything like that. But they can power sensors. And we've done a lot of work with optomics, which I'll talk about a little bit. And what's really key is that for the Internet of Things, which I'm sure we've all heard about for 10 years, and it's finally coming, all the sensors, people are trying to figure out how to make that power lower. Because if you make that power lower, you can make it smaller, and you can make things like a injectable pressure sensor for your eye for glaucoma. And that goes into a small, let's think about a needle, and it just goes into your eye. That might sound a little, but it doesn't hurt. And it can go in there, and then you can monitor that pressure in that eye all the time, because it can read out with just our very, very small battery. Some fascinating things are happening in this area. So what we do, we make world-class micro batteries. You've probably heard. Let me go back 1 second. You all heard about the Samsung thing, right? Samsung batteries, they heated up, they started on fire. The reason they did is because they have a liquid electrolyte, okay? We make a solid state electrolyte battery. So it cannot overheat, and it cannot cause any damage, and it cannot start on fire. So as you might guess, we've talked to Samsung. Can you make your battery 500 times bigger? Because we would love to get rid of our liquid. By the way, your iPhone also has a liquid electrolyte. And the difference is there's a certain barrier, there's a titanium layer that's in there that Samsung did not have. And that's why your phone will still heat up, but it won't cause dendrite. I'm getting into all these cool terms out there. Won't cause a dendrite that starts on fire. So just so you know, a lot of batteries out there are liquid electrolytes. What everybody wants to go is solid state electrolytes. We've been in that business for a long time. The big trend is mobility, big data, having sensors everywhere. Having a sensor, up on the wall, you don't have to wire, so it can be wireless. It can monitor in a room like this, humidity, temperature, whatever, and there's enough light in here easily to, even though it's low light, enough light to do that. You can also recharge that with kinetic energy, so if there's any wind flowing through, you could do that. So there's a lot of ways to recharge these. Again, because they're such small power, there's a lot of ways to recharge them. MedTech, a lot of on the skin, under the skin. Our product, as you look down below, is certified non-cytotoxic, so you can eat them. Put them in your Cheerios in the morning, a little extra fiber. They're very safe, as I mentioned before. They can't start on fire. You can drive a nail through it, and you won't have any issues. Don't try that with other batteries. We have a lot of patents, fairly substantial patent portfolio, but more importantly, we have a lot of trade secrets about how to build solid-state thin film batteries. So that's a very important part of what we have to offer. Low-cost assembly. Our battery can also go through solder reflow. Because of the way we make it, it's a proprietary way to make it. We have a metal edge seal so that it can go through, and then after it's gone through solder reflow. So you can imagine right now when there's coin cells, or the ubiquitous coin cells that are out there, which are very toxic, by the way, as you probably all know. And don't drive a nail through a coin cell. You might not like the answer you get, or the shock, but they can't go through solder reflow. So what happens when anybody's manufacturing a small board, they have to put a holder on there. It goes through solder reflow at the end. It has to be either with a pick and place machine or, unfortunately, young kids in China putting that coin cell physically into that holder. Ours can be assembled right on the board, go through solder reflow, and it's all set, and you can charge the battery at the end. So big differences for us: fast recharge and eco-friendly. So as I mentioned, started back in 2000. There's been just over $100 million invested into the company over the years. We've outsourced our manufacturing now to X-Fab. They're a fab that's based in Erfurt, Germany, but they have fabs all over the world. They have one in the United States. It's in Lubbock. It's the old Texas Instruments facility. It's like 1.3 million square feet. It's really huge. And we have one section of that. They have a CMOS factory there. It's they used to make speak and spells, and everybody here knows TI-180. Who knows a TI-186 calculator? That's where they were all made in Lubbock, Texas. So we have our own separate wing with a lot of space for us to expand as well. So we've got a lot of interesting design awards and medical design awards. And as I tell everybody, when the marketing person says, "Hey, look at this, we just got this nanotechnology award," that's not revenue. That's not revenue. And then we redesigned our website earlier this year, and we went to I'm sure all of you have done the SEO and the Google ads and those things. You go out there. Oh, did you see how many clicks we got? Awesome. How much revenue did we get? So just simple questions like that. The inner chip is our battery. Replaces conventional energy storage, the coin cells and super caps and those kind of things. And we think because of our solder reflow and that we can go places where those can't. And in addition, we can help companies do things, because zero cytotoxicity, that they can't do today. We also, while we were going through a very painful process of redoing our manufacturing and outsourcing it to X-Fab, we basically had no revenue. And one of the things I got to do as one of my first jobs as CEO is dismantle our sales and marketing organization. And as ever you've gone through that process, it's not the most delightful process. So we went from over 40 employees, we went down to 16. Because I also, as part of this, we closed our fab in Elk River, Minnesota, where we had our headquarters still is, but we had a whole fab there. And if any of you are in the industry and you know you have a clean room fab, it's not cheap to run a clean room fab. So very tough decisions, but what we needed to do. So while we were doing that, we spent 3 years developing a new PMRTC, which is a power management chip. So it helps power our battery so it can be recharged by different ways. But when it's in a circuit, it can cut off all these other things. So if you've got, say, cold storage and you're trying to keep track of what the temperature is, but you don't need to read out all the time, then we can put that whole system to sleep. And then when it's time to wake up, we can wake that up and then send the signal off about what the temperature change is. So very unique. And then the other is the real-time clock, and that keeps track of the clock, internal clock. Think of shipping something from China over here. You want to set the clock, and you want to make sure when it gets there, the clock is set, and some of the parameters are left. That's what a real-time clock. We've combined those into one chip, and we have the lowest power RTC in the world now. So this was just introduced in September. We're very excited about it, and we are getting a lot of website traffic about it. But again, as soon as that starts turning to revenue, which it is a little bit, I'll be happy. So we can do primary power when it's a very low power need, or we can be backup power, or we can work with those energy harvesting solutions, which is kind of what I talked about. If you put a sensor up on the wall here, and we're looking for needed to get it recharged, that's energy harvesting, harvesting energy from any kind of source so that it can be reused. So IoT, we already talked a little bit about this, but the key is our battery can be recharged up to 10,000 times. So we can last the life of any sensor that's out there. And that's really key, and we can be wirelessly recharged. So if you've got wearable or implantable medical, and again, under skin, on skin sensors, and again, we're zero cytotoxic, so you don't have to worry about that. Wireless sensor network, smart cards, RFID, and electronic textiles. Those are all things that are good markets for our battery. I talked a little bit about where the conventional batteries fall short. They're much bigger than we are. We're obviously very, very small batteries, toxic, hazardous, obviously not. We have no transportation issues, whereas obviously some of these batteries do have transportation. So we do a lot with biomedical, as you can imagine. We've got several ophthalmic projects in the way. One of them is it's a small sack of, it's a very small sack, but it's got medicine for glaucoma, and it's put in the corner of the eye. It's got a very small pump, and then our battery powers that. And so it gets just a small amount, and they replace the sack every 30 days if that's what they need to do. It's just in the corner of the eye. And our battery's lasting that 30 days, but they're trying to figure out if there's a way to recharge our battery with just blinking. So the blinking would be enough kinetic energy to recharge it, and then you'd never have to worry about that battery again. You could attach the battery to the other mechanism, and then just the sack would come out, not the battery as well. So some really cool stuff happening in that space. There's another company that wants to do a lot of things with the eye. The contact lens, so basically it can change. Like I'm old-fashioned. I wear glasses that are progressive, right? And we're all, at least most of us are CPAs, so we probably all have a pair of those. And this is a contact lens that just changes for you on that. And so that's kind of cool. And obviously, as soon as you start doing that, somebody wants to do video, somebody wants to do pictures, somebody wants to do this. So, and again, the key is getting those power requirements down, because nobody wants a battery sticking on the side of their head here to power what they're trying to do in their lens. It's got to be very, very small. Who remembers Google Glass? All right. Well, Google Glass came out, and of course, when they were doing their second demonstration, we had it on, and the batteries, of course, were all in the sides of the glasses. And if you remember, it was done in 32 minutes, right? Because they were trying to do so much with the Google Glass, they took all the power, and they didn't have the rechargeability, the near-field rechargeability, which we have today. So you don't have to plug in things anymore. You just near-field, like your watches and all the other things that are happening. So then they came to us and said, geez, can you do this? Can you load in your batteries? And it was like, yeah, okay, we can do this, but they're going to need 60 of these in parallel on each thing. And if you want the glasses to $2,000, yeah, we can make this happen. Yeah, and neurostim is another thing that's really cool. We just, the vagus nerve, there's a trial going on, and you just slip it under the skin, and it's a nerve stimulation thing. So some really cool stuff in the medical area. So manufacturing, I already talked about XFAB Texas. By the way, this is not water. There's no water in Lubbock, Texas. I showed that to a potential investor. He goes, "Oh, is that on the ocean?" And I go, "Oh God, no! There's no water in Lubbock, Texas." But anyway, so we're one of these pods, completely separated. They get they're a CMOS factory, and any of you that are in that business will know that they get really excited about lithium, which is in our battery. And even though ours is completely contained, they get really excited about it. So we got special doors you got to go through, no wafers of theirs can go through back and forth. So whenever I mention that, somebody who knows CMOS goes, "Don't they do CMOS? You can't be in the same factory." No, we're fine, we're good. So this has really been a difficult process when we had everything going in a small scale. But that was never a business, It was great development, but it was never a business. And then getting to where we have scale manufacturing, and I'm sure some of you have gone through that, but it's every day. There's nothing else you're thinking about all day long about, God, when do we get this process? When do we get this up? And then as soon as you do, one of the key pieces of the deposition equipment go down or something. So we're trying to use as much standard equipment as we can, standard wafer processing equipment. But we do have specialized tools. Our cathode is not a secret. It's out there. It's lithium cobalt oxide. A lot of people are trying to use LiCo. That's what Elon Musk wants to use, LiCo, because it's got great properties. And then we licensed from Oak Ridge National Labs like 16 years ago now the rights to the patent portfolio included Lipon, which is lithium phosphorus oxynitride for those who are chemists. And that's the solid state electrolyte. So that's really important. That is now off patent, so other people can use it. So if you might have just seen Dr. Goodenough, he won the Nobel Prize in chemistry, and he's 90, he's the oldest Nobel winner at 95. And we worked with Dr. Goodenough for the last 10 years. And so he's done a lot of work with this and with Lipon as electrolyte. So you'll hear more about that, and now you know what it is, right? So the PMRTC, we've also outsourced that, trying to be a fabless company so that we're not manufacturing these, somebody else is manufacturing to our specs. So we have some 60-some patents, and again, to me, that's all public knowledge. You can go get that. It's all the trade secret stuff that is very important to what we're doing. So our products, this is a big dime. This is one of our batteries, and this is the very, very large size for us, the extremely large size battery. And then this is it's actually a 5 microamp battery. And as I mentioned before, we make a 2 microamp battery. So it's about 40% the size of that. So asset tracking, RFID, IoT, medical, military, those are the things that the in-a-chip bare die can be put into. The new PMRTC, as I mentioned before, it's a power management chip as well as a real-time clock chip. Power manager, it also has a temperature sensor in there. So, and it's to 1 degree Celsius, so it can be used very well for cold chain. And battery life extension is another great thing. Even if we're not the primary battery, if you need a much, much more power, we can help extend the life of that battery because we can turn everything off with our power management. So really key feature there. And then we are embarking right now is putting our battery with our PMRTC into a single package so that you can have this real-time clock with battery powered backup that can be recharged. So, and that's used for data loggers and asset tracking and telecom networking utilities. Think about a meter where you want a reader and they want to come down the street and they just want to read off of that and without having to go up to your house and look at the meter or anything like that. So that's a little bit about that. So I think we're going to switch gears here a little bit and talk about the CFO to CEO transition. As most of you are aware, there's been an uptick in this. And I happened to grab some information from a study. It's a little old. I understand there's another one being undertaken right now by Korn Ferry, which isn't published yet. But so why the increase in this number? A couple of things. There's right after the recession back in 08 and 09, we've got a lot of post-recession difficulties. So financial acumen was a key thing that boards were looking for. So you got some more CFO to CEO transitions. Turnarounds, there's obviously a number of turnarounds happening. Financial maneuverability, because if you remember in that recession, there was a lot of financial instruments that got upside down and had to get worked out. And so leaning back to the CFO to do that and promoting some of those to the CEO. Some recognition that growth, that should be from, not form, from M&A versus organic. And I think that as most of you in CFO roles have been involved in some kind of mergers, acquisitions, or doing something like that. So a little more financial acumen needed to do that kind of thing. The other thing that was interesting is the gradual elimination of the COO role. From the end of 2013, only 35% of the Fortune 500 and the S&P 500 had a COO role. And if you remember, I guess based on the introduction again, I'm old, so I go way back. There used to be a lot of COOs. Virtually every company had a chief operating role. So that's declined, and I think so that has something to do, I think, a little bit, because the CFO has been taking on some of those roles. I know I certainly have, and certainly in smaller and medium companies, you can't afford to have two people, so the CFO can certainly get part of those. That study also noted that 40% of the CEOs came from the COO role. So just some data, because we all like numbers, right? 27% of the CEOs had some CFO experience, and energy and financial sectors were higher than that, which is, I think, fairly obvious. But the lowest was technology, which is really interesting because obviously Cymbet is in the technology field. And I think that was one of the hardest things, as George and I are going to talk here about, that transition from CFO to CEO is just, our company's all built on technology, and we have we have doctors in physics, doctors in chemistry. I am not, and that was the most daunting thing about how do I do this? How do I talk to investors? How do I talk to our board about all of the technology aspects? Okay, that's all of it.
All right, so now we're going to. Yeah, there we go. Now we're going to go to the fireside chat portion of the program. We were going to invite some of the Vulcan crew, but bring the fire. They were busy this morning, I guess.
Right, they're sleeping. Yeah.
So we've got like 10, 15 minutes of questions, that sort of thing, and then we'll open it up to the audience. First off, to get things started, CPA by background, so you're in college and you wake up one day and you say, I want to be a CPA. So tell us about kind of that decision and how you chose the original portion of your profession.
Well, I'd love to hear that story from everybody. Well, I was 18 drinking age. I had taken a class in accounting bookkeeping in high school. And so the math aptitude thing, I'm sure a lot of us had. So I thought about that, but I really wanted to study Greek and Roman history. I fell in love with it in college. And I was just looking at doing what the career development office says to do, and I went and looked, and I go, geez, these guys don't make a lot of money. We might never get to go there. So then I said, well, maybe I'll stick with that accounting thing, and I'll take a lot of classes in Greek and Roman history, and Mary and I have been fortunate we've been able to travel there a lot. Okay. So I really like it. So.
And that led you to Ross.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So now tell us about some of the career progression from there, from Touche Ross to your current role as CEO of Cymbet.
Sure. Yeah. Started with Touche Ross in St. Paul, and to segue, to some of the other stuff I've been doing, I got involved with the St. Paul JCs right there.
Okay.
So in fact, I think Phil and I met each other in the early '80s. That age thing going again, but in the early '80s, and that was just part of the community service thing that Mary and I had been committed to.
Sure.
So that was important. And so I did the classic audit roles, you become the senior and then you become the manager.
Yep.
I did, in 1986, I did a transfer to Melbourne, Australia and worked there for a while.
Okay.
And I came back and they said, geez, we'd like you to help out with our recruiting. We're going to change gears a little bit from a professional recruiter and we'd like you to lead that for us. And I said, great, what's going to happen to my clients? Well, you get to keep all your clients. Just get to work for it. So, and that was very interesting. And I got to, I'm going to guess, probably some people besides Tom that I worked at hiring here. And so that was a really good experience. And I became senior manager, and then in '89 announced the merger of two Shaws and Deloitte.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I was asked to be prime minister at the same moment. And one of the guys said, well, that'd be great. Aren't you the first person introduced from the royal house of Deloitte and Touche? So that was kind of an interesting thing as well.
Okay.
91, I left Deloitte and Touche and went to Honeywell and helped manage the Honeywell financial audit team with Angela past president.
Okay.
FEI.
Angela Riley.
When Angela Riley now, she was
Yeah.
in that, but Angela Riley now. So that's a connection there with her as well. And then I went into M&A business development.
Okay.
For them, and we put together a lot of merger packages. Very big in the HVAC systems and Honeywell, all the controls.
Sure.
So we were buying up small groups of that all over the country. So
Okay.
very interesting. Then we bought Measurex in 95. So that was a pretty big acquisition for us, all of the behavior controls and stuff.
So Honeywell's where you really cut your teeth in terms of M&A.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. We probably did over 100 deals, so it was really active. And then I got my MBA at the University of Minnesota.
Okay.
And as soon as I got done with that, I made the promise that, I'll stay here for a while because I helped pay for part of it. And then GE came, and I went, I'll see you guys later. I'm going to go to GE. And it was an interesting experience at GE because the job was in Atlanta, and Mary was the CFO at the WCRA, the Workers' Comp Reinsurance Association here in Minnesota. And she said, well, why don't you go try that out first before I move the whole family there? So I went down there and probably 9 months or something down there. We went to do our presentation to Jack Welch. And so our team of 5 went there, and at the end we were literally getting up to go back and get on our airplane to go back, and Jack comes up to my boss right in front of me and goes, you're fired, right? And he goes, yeah, I thought I was. And I goes, okay. So I get on this little, we got an 8-passenger plane, and I'm going like, he looks at me and goes, did you buy a house yet? And I go, no. And he goes, your job's going to move to Connecticut next month. And I'm like, oh. So we didn't want to move to Connecticut. So came back here and worked with ProStaff first. And then did the kind of the litany you talked about before with a lot of technology companies after that.
Okay.
So doing Dascom and Syprico, and then was approached about coming to Cymbet. I think it was a year before I actually joined there. I talked to them and they said, we're not quite ready for a CFO. We're still building up what we're doing. And so joined them back in 2010. So,
Now, talk about that transition. I mean, you gave kind of the general overview about how CFOs become CEOs and what that pathway is, but talk a little bit about the experience at Cymbet. You're in the CFO seat.
Sure. And
how that transition happened from CFO to CEO.
Right. Our CEO was looking at retiring, and I think that had really been there for quite some time and was looking to do something a little bit different. And so, and I think there was a personal situation as well. I don't want to go into too much of that. But then resigned, and then we were kind of the senior management team. We were all sitting there. You've got sales and marketing. You've got manufacturing. You've got development. You've got HR. And then so it's like, okay. And the chairman said, can you guys make this work? And sure. All the peers, we can work together. And then a few months later, the board chair came and said, we don't think this is working. So what do you think about being the CEO? And I said, Yeah, it'll be a challenge, and as I mentioned before, but I'm not the technical person. I have no doctorate in chemistry or physics, and they said, that's okay, that's okay, we can make this work. So, I said yes, and we announced that. It's always interesting because he wanted to fly here and announce it to the team, because you're with all your peers, right? And all of a sudden, you're not peers anymore.
Yeah.
And for the most part, it worked out well. Certainly in one instance, the person who thought they were the natural next person because they were more of the COO, the manufacturing, and had the doctorate degrees, and so that didn't work out all that well. But we were able to work together for a while, and then he went off and did something else. So and what's nice is we still stay in contact now, so it's not a bloody war or anything like that. So, but it's always interesting how you do that. And the key thing for me at that point was the communication, not just about work, but asking the questions and being curious about what else was going on in their lives, which I didn't do before. And I think that's the other thing is that, for all of you that have been CFOs, you're so busy doing your own job. You don't spend enough time. Testing is critical for us. It's such a critical area for us. Manufacturing, right? The equipment process, all of this stuff, the relationship with the customers. I almost had no exposure to that at all. And so it was, and I recommend if you're in that position and you're thinking about making a transition, go get that. Go, even if it's having lunch with folks, and just ask tons of questions about what's going on in their area. And I think I was just too busy doing my area, so I suddenly had to switch 180 degrees, and I need to find out everything I can about this and learn about the technology.
And so then you're asking lots of questions of lots of people about what their job is, what how they contact the customer, what the challenges are that they're facing on a day-to-day basis, and so you're getting a very different lens, a very different view of the company in that role, even though you've been with the company for how many years at that point?
I've been there 5 years.
5 years?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. And I think the title thing too, George, that's the other thing. Is you get the title, and with the title comes a number of things, a lot of expectations.
Sure.
And all of a sudden, the investors that you're communicating with instantly expect that, the finances. And that's the other thing about the CFO role. We all know the stereotype, right? You report on everything in the past. This is what's happened. And then sales and marketing and the other come in, this is what's happening in the future. And you gotta retrain yourself, and I retrained myself to spend 90% of my time at any board meeting on all of the stuff that's forward facing versus backward facing. So that's a big change. But then you'll have, there's different cultures. In Asia, with that title comes, and they're expecting all the technology as well. And they just have that. So we worked out really well. 2 people on my team that are just fantastic technologists, and I make sure I team with them with everything I do, whether it's board meetings, whether it's investors, whether it's customers, and sometimes you don't get that, you have to do it on your own. And I know enough to communicate that, and I know enough where I'm getting in trouble. I go, wait a minute, let's get somebody else in the conversation as well.
Well, that's the important thing, right? Knowing what you know and knowing what you don't know, and when you need to call in an expert and some of those sorts of issues. And so it sounds like, particularly in dealing with Asian cultures, that's something that you have to be especially focused on, because they're looking to you as being the expert from a technology perspective as well as just the general business. So, if I can ask, how much of your business is OUS versus here domestically?
Well, because we've restarted, the revenues have not been great the last 2 years. But to go back to that, we had some significant revenues, and I would say the US, well, it all depends if it's manufactured here or designed here. So that's the real key thing we always look at. Is it designed here and then manufactured somewhere else? So we really center on the design. So I'd say the design was probably 60% here, 20% Europe, and 20% Asia.
Okay.
Manufacturing might be different.
Sure. And then on a go-forward basis, future opportunities, where do you see most of the growth potential?
I'd say it's going to stay U.S. and Europe, just because we're pretty medical, and we've got some other military things. And the only way the military likes you to deal is with us or NATO. And so that's a little bit limiting, but the medical really is focused here. I mean, Asia, almost all the medical stuff is knockoffs, and folks that have taken our products and tried to reverse engineer.
Sure. Okay, all right. Other than leading a successful Winter Carnival in the next few months, what are you looking forward to in 2020?
2020, I think it's the traction for the new PMRTC. I'm excited about that. Getting with a partner, we can go back and add back the 10 to 20 people for sales and marketing, but I'd rather add back a small number and partner with somebody else who already has that go-to-market in place, has that single or double tier distribution in place, because that would make it so much easier. And we're not afraid to have someone else brand this for somebody else, rebrand our PMRTC because of just their ability to get out in the marketplace to what they've already have established.
So it's really distribution activities that will propel your company and open up new opportunities for growth.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, all right, good. So let's talk a little bit about the Winter Carnival. I mean, how did you get involved with the Winter Carnival originally?
This again, goes all the way back to 1989 when I was at Deloitte & Touche.
Okay.
And Vic Ryan was the chairman of. He was vice chairman of American National Bank and chairman of Commercial State Bank, both clients of Deloitte & Touche.
Okay.
And he was going to be the chair of the festival, and went to some of my bosses at Winter Carnival and said, "Hey, Monte did a great job as JC president. We really like him. We think he should be the prime minister." And so my boss came back and said, "Well, I guess you're going to be the next prime minister." And I'm like, "Oh, is this all decided already?" And it gave me
Give a busy guy a job, right?
Right, give a busy guy a job, make sure it gets done. And so that was our introduction to the Winter Carnival, and it's great. It's a community service thing. But it's as Phil knows, it's a big job.
Yeah.
And I think go forward 29 years.
Yeah.
And they came and asked, would you consider being King Boreas? And I hadn't had a lobotomy yet, so and your brain remembers all this wonderful stuff, and some of the other stuff I don't know why I just don't remember that. But again, it was as Mary and I looked at it, it was an opportunity as kind of a capstone to community service, and whether it's the youth sports that I've done or the scouting I've been involved with for 32 years, or Special Olympics board, all of those things. This is a great capstone opportunity to do it and celebrate not only our community, but then we celebrate with all the communities around. If there's a vegetable or a fruit celebration, we've been there. And whether it's rutabaga, strawberries, but it's great to go to those places because they view, as Roseanne said at the beginning, our festival, oldest in the United States, 134 years old. And they send all their queens and stuff to our festival, so they know our festival. And so to go out there and celebrate their community and recognize some of their volunteers, which is really an awesome thing we get to do as well. So, so we're going to make about 360 appearances this year. So I always tell people I have 2 full-time jobs. One I get paid to do, and the other one I pay to do. And we travel. This year we've been to Winnipeg, Canada. We have official exchange with the Festival de Voyageurs, the Macon Cherry Blossom Festival. More cherry blossom trees than Washington, D.C., by the way. It's gorgeous there. Springtime Tallahassee, Hernando de Soto and Bradenton, Fiesta San Antonio. We'll be at the Tournament of Roses, Cross Oktoberfest, Aquatennial across the river. I'm forgetting, South Dakota Snow Queen Festival. Forgot about that. So there's quite a bit of out-of-town travel as well, and then the 56 or 7 parades that we did were on top of that.
57 parades. And all this while you're holding down your CEO job at Cymbet.
Right. I had a great team on both the Winter Carnival side and on the Cymbet side. Great team. when I asked my board chair and our lead investor, and they said, we're raising money, we can't support you financially. And I said, I just need time flexibility. Mary and I are willing to do the money part.
Sure.
I just need the time flexibility. And they both laughed and said, you send us emails at 3:30 in the morning. We're not worried about you. Yeah, just go do it. So, so they're, and I will tell you this, and if you want me to tell you, but I'll just tell you here. Our lead investor, he looked it up. And he goes, so you're going to be the king of Minnesota? And
but if it comes with a salary increase, I'll consider it, right?
Exactly. Well, he took out his checkbook and wrote a personal check.
Really?
He was so excited that we would take this on, this community service role.
Ah.
So that was very touching that he would do that.
Yeah, nice. So, gosh, I mean, there's so much that goes on with the Winter Carnival. What are your favorite parts of the Winter Carnival coming up?
Well, last winter, if you remember, it was a little cold. In fact, we had the snowiest February every year. I'm sure you probably know that here in Minnesota. But we also hit that 50-degree below for 2 days. So we go, for the 10 days of Carnival, we stay at the same hotel, and we go from 6:30 in the morning until almost midnight for 10 days in a row. We have a bus that takes us somewhere new every 30 to 45 minutes. And we go to a lot of schools. There weren't any schools to go to. And what was amazing is all the nursing homes and assisted living centers started calling our coordinators and saying, we're open 24 hours a day. So we did a lot of senior living centers, nursing homes. In fact, I kidded the group on our third day. I said, we're going to mix it up today. Instead of doing nursing homes, we're going to do assisted living, memory care, senior living, just to break it up a little bit. But it's really touching. You go into these places and you see a knighting certificate. They only have a few things in their room.
Yeah.
And that was important enough to them back in 1968 to have that in there. And all of these places had people that had been involved with Winter Carnival.
Sure.
So they had their own, literally, while we're on the bus on the way there, they bring them all down, have a little ceremony, pick a king and the queen, and we came in and did the coronation party.
Wow.
And we did it. Wow. We did it 20 or 25 times. But every time, my team is so great, realize that this is important to those people, that person, that time.
Wow.
And those individual connections are really, really, really great. I was telling the Star Warriors group last night that, the one time we were in there and the lady's sitting there and I had some of the crowns in her room with me and she looks up and she goes, my angels are here, I can die now. I'm going, whoa, wait a minute. We can't go. But it was just those kind of moments are, and there's great things. There's ice sculptures in Rice Park, which is called the King's Courtyard. There's ice skating, there's snow slides at CSH Field.
Mm-hmm.
At the State Fairgrounds, there's going to be huge snow sculptures and a big snow slide and a snow maze.
Yeah.
So all of those things are really, really cool. But to me, it's the
Cool, no pun intended, right?
Cool,
Yeah.
right? It's the coolest celebration on earth. To me, it's all of those where you're doing, and you get more of the one-on-one thing.
Sure.
And you make that little impact on those people. The big things are great, but it's those one-on-one things.
Sure. Well, we've come to the point in the discussion where we'd like to open it up to the audience for questions that you might have. I think, Roseanne, do you have another microphone?
I don't, so if you can repeat the question,
Ah,
that would be
okay.
great.
Question in the back?
Yep, Ken.
Yeah, great. Really love hearing about Cymbet. It seems like you're in the industry of the future. So, two questions that are a little bit off base. But do you own a battery-operated car?
I do not. And one of the reasons I don't own a battery-operated car is because those batteries have a couple issues, heat and cold, in terms of their longevity. And it's the key thing that they're working on. So as soon as they figure out how to do that a little bit better, and it has to do with the, hey Thomas, it's the impedance of the battery, right? And it's the depth of discharge on the battery. So those that's interesting. What I'd love to do is have a car powered by Cymbet battery. Now, for $250,000, I can have powered by the Cymbet battery. So,
Second question: Are you concerned about the disposal cost of like the Tesla batteries and those after a number of years?
You know, that is an issue that hasn't obviously come across very much. The only ones that they worry about recycling are the ones that completely did a depth of discharge and they had to replace them. It's not a zero cytotoxic battery. It's not a regular IC that's disposable. So there is that issue, but at the same time, there's other things going on with besides just electric, and it's how you produce that electric. And can you use hydrogen? And hydrogen, the guys, and again, you still need a storage facility unless you're going to just use it right away. But hydrogen's the cleanest and the best by far to power a car. Your energy density for hydrogen is probably 50 times better than electric, and it's interesting. As things move forward, I would certainly look at electric car. Today the electric cars, if it says that you got a 350-mile range, you don't today.
Other questions?
Sorry.
Brent?
Thank you. Two-part question for you. First of all, in hindsight, what could you have done as a CFO that would have added more value to your CEO? And second question, again in hindsight, what could you have done in your CFO role to have better positioned you for the CEO role in the future?
I guess the first part of your question, what could I have done better for the CEO? I guess I should have forced myself into some of the conversations that he would be having with the manufacturing, the production, and the test people. And those were conversations that I wasn't involved in. And I think I would have done the company better if I would have said, hey, I want to be in on that. Yeah, if you guys start talking about, hey, this is a 40% depth, I'm not going to follow everything, but I'll get a general sense about what's going on. And I would have learned about the battle between test and production. And we made, initially we made millions of batteries that were never shipped to a customer because they didn't meet spec. And so really, really key. And that was eye-opening for me. I think the other thing is what I said before. Get out there and understand the people that are your peers better. And not just on the company side. What else is going on in their life. And I know the CFO role, if you might be doing IT, you might be doing HR, you might be doing banking, investor relations, you might be doing all that stuff as CFO. But again, it's getting away from all the things you do well, and you're comfortable with that. I do all these things well. And so what happens with the CFO, and this happened to me in several roles, well, you could take an IT then, because you're doing a great job and all this stuff. Oh, you should do HR. We'll just put HR into you because you can do all this stuff. And you keep doing all the stuff you're good at. And you got to break out of that and get into those other areas and understand it.
Thank you.
One more question?
So tied to that, Monty, how did you backfill that from kind of the roles that you had before you didn't bring with you to?
Yeah.
How did that interaction occur, given you're kind of the resident expert in those areas?
Right. Well, we went through a period. I had a controller, right? And I just said, okay, well, this person can handle all this stuff. And then he kind of looked at where we were, and I was honest with him about, hey, we're restructuring the company, and how much revenue are we going to have? We're not going to have much here right away because we got to redo everything we're doing in Texas. We got to redevelop this PMRTC product, and so he left, and so basically just been using accountant help to make that work. And so I slice off part of my day to switch hats. That's the joke at the company that our management team always talks about. Is Monty in his office again having an interdepartmental meeting? So, so I really haven't, as we grow, that's a key thing for me. And I think I'm excited about it as we go forward because I'd love to hire somebody because I think I have the insight about how to make them develop to be the best CFO they can be because I've gone through so many of those things already. So, and not always the right way. And that's, you learn more from where you have failed or not done as well as you'd like than you do from keeping doing the same thing the right way. So, And just more time.
So please join me in a round of applause to thank Monte for his presentation. Now he needs to step down for just a moment. We've got some breaking news that I wanted to share with the group. And Monte will be back to join us for a special surprise Winter Carnival event here. The breaking news is that FEI is inviting you to a community event at the Federal Reserve Bank in Minneapolis coming up Thursday, January 9th. Okay, it's their third annual Regional Economic Conditions Conference, sponsored by the bank. Those of you who were present at our September meeting remember Neil Kashkari spoke. It was a joint event with the National Association of Corporate Directors, sold out room. This one is also likely to sell out, so if you have an interest, we encourage you to get connected with that right away. It's a half-day conference focusing on state economic outlooks, key industry spotlights for the 9th Federal Reserve District, which of course includes Minnesota, the Dakotas, Montana, northwestern Wisconsin, and Michigan's Upper Peninsula. In addition to Neil Kashkari, Beth Ford, President and CEO of Land O'Lakes, is going to kick off the conference with a keynote address and then a moderated Q&A with Mr. Kashkari. After that, there'll be feature presentations, panel discussions with prominent economists from each district state whose work shapes local knowledge about regional economies and informs state-level public policy. So we literally just connected last night with the folks at the Federal Reserve Bank on this, and so you'll see some more information on this going forward. But it's a morning event, Thursday, January 9th, 2020. Starts at 8 o'clock, and it's at the Federal Reserve Bank.
So many of you know, we're building out our social media channels. So we are on LinkedIn and Twitter right now. We're going to add some other things. But we need to get something for LinkedIn. So we're going to do a quick video. You guys are all going to look like you're having a good time. So if you could smile. And then also, that would be great. Feel free to wave. And then this is important too. I need everybody to sing I'm a Little Teapot. Go ahead. Wait. Fun, we're having fun. All right. If you don't get tagged in this later, it's because you're not my friend on LinkedIn. So. All right. Now we can bring Monte back up.
Okay, and now it is my privilege. I would like to introduce you to the mighty monarch of ice and snow, Boreas Rex the 83rd, from the Royal House of Cymbet Corporation, Monte S. Johnson.
So this isn't quite the full dress, but there's it even gets more gold than this. But one of the great things we get to do as we travel around the world family, the St. Paul Winter Carnival, is we get to bring people into the realm of Boreas. So I'm going to ask the lovely lady Boreas to come forward with the royal pillow and have these three people come forward and place their right hand on the royal pillow. George, Roseanne, and Anita Moulton. The king gets to do what the king wants to do. And our knighting ceremony goes like this. We, Boreas Rex, King of the Winter Carnival, in token of our esteem, reposing the utmost confidence in your ability to do honor to this illustrious position, to hereby appoint George J.S. Grand Duke, years of providing service supreme superstar on the FEI scene. Anita Moulton, Duchess, Board President Supreme on the Twin Cities FEI scene. And Roseanne Bump, Baroness, Executive Director Supreme of the Twin Cities FEI scene. And now Boreas charges you to having to hold this said office with all the rights, responsibilities, appurtenances, and hereditaments thereto belonging, or otherwise pertaining for the full term of our reign. In testimony thereof, we have hereunto set forth our hand and caused the great seal of our dominion to be affixed in the city of St. Paul, Minnesota, our right, royal, winter capital, on this 10th day of December, in the year of our Lord, 2019. Signed, Boreas Rex, the 83rd, Monte S. Johnson. This is where you all say, Hail Boreas!
Hail Boreas!
We have knighting, still here, we have knighting medals for you that the Boreas will pin on you. But wait, that's not all. There's a few people I worked with before, and I don't know if they're all here or not. Jeffrey, are you here? Walter's here. Come on up, Walter. Lori LaFontaine, please come up. Jill Nussbaum. Jill, I saw Jill. Come on up, Jill. Is Marlon here? Is Marlon make it? Okay, how about Helen? All right, so we have Walter and Lori and Jill. Please come forward. Oh, Dave's actually been knighted already. Dave and I have been in the Timberwolves group together. I'm an original season ticket holder, so we've been partnering on that here. So please come, you three. Please come forward. Place your right hand on the royal pillow. We, Boreas Rex, taking the Winter Carnival token of our esteem, reposing the utmost confidence in your ability to honor to this illustrious position, do hereby appoint Walter Youngbauer, Count, Lori LaFontaine, Countess, Jill Nussbaum, Countess, D&T connection with the King. It's all about the accounting thing. Now Boreas charges you to have to hold this said office with all the rights, responsibilities, appurtenances, and inheritance thereto belonging for the full term of our reign. In testimony thereof, we are here to set forth in our hand and cause the great seal of our dominion to be affixed in the city of St. Paul, Minnesota, our right, royal, winter capital, on this 10th day of December in the year of our Lord 2019. Signed, Boreas Rex, the 83rd Monte S. Johnson. And this is where you all say, Hail Boreas!